Right. Hi, I'm Phil DeVol. I'm the guy that wrote Getting Ahead to Just-Gettin By World. And we've been hearing from facilitators about different topics. And the other day we heard from somebody who said that on page 193 in Module 9, there's that activity called the tic-tac-toe. And would you please kind of explain how that works? Because our group really struggled with it. So that's what I'm going to do today. This is basically for facilitators. I don't think anyone else watching this would understand what we're about. So let me just say that it would probably be fun if we just did this by looking at a mental model that was created by somebody in Quakertown, Pennsylvania, and sort of tell her story in the process that we went through to get to this this activity in Module 9. So if we could just pan down to her mental model, I'll just talk about it a little bit. So when you think about this activity, think about the whole group and think about how far they've come. In Module 1, we do a mental model of what poverty is like, and we take a look at our own lives. We go like, here's poverty in our community, and then after that, we look at what percent of our income goes for housing, and who's living in the house, and we get into the personal stuff. And then in Module 2, we go to our theory of change. And in Module 3, we're putting context to poverty by looking at how the middle class and how wealth was created and so on. And then we get to Module 4, and we're talking about the hidden rules. And we've already looked at mental models of poverty and middle class. And the discussions get deeper and deeper. And by Module 3, by the third session, I should say, most groups are really working groups. They are coming together and working together really well. And so they exchange ideas, they learn from each other, and it all becomes group learning. So they go into Module 5, 6, 7, and 8, and they've done their self-assessment on stability, they've done their self-assessment of their resources, and then the next logical thing to do is how do you build them? And that's where Module 9 is, and that's where this activity, the tic-tac-toe, comes in. So if you look at this story from Quakertown, Pennsylvania, this woman is in bed, it's 4 a.m., and her eyes are blue. You know, she's had so little sleep. The alarm clock is running. See its little legs there? And the hood of the car is up, and it's steaming away. And around the circle, it says job 1, job 2, job 3, kids, bills, car repairs, job 1, job 2, job 3, kids, bills, car repairs. And then the word stress across there. That comes from Module 1, and that is what her life is like now. Now, what I just described about getting to Module 9, this is where Module 9 is. This is the way out. Because when you've decided that you have high and low resources and you start thinking about, well, how do I build them? To get to her future story, you've got to make this connection, and that's what this activity is about, this one that we call the tic-tac-toe. So I'm going to ask you to pan back a little bit and roll this down so people can see this. This is what you see on page 193. And she decided to work on her mental resources. And then she thought, what do I have to take into account to do that? Well, time is an issue for me. You know, she's got 3 jobs, right, as you saw. Grades are going to be important. How do I keep them up? She has 3 jobs, right? And then her kids are important. And of course, money's an issue. And these are the things that she thinks she has to deal with in order to build that future story for herself. So if you pan back, we can show how this is done. If you take a look at time, it goes from here to the center of this circle here, and then we'll do more thinking about time around that particular topic. Grades, if you start in the center, bring that up here in the corresponding shape of this thing and put grades here, and then you do some thinking around the grades. Here's jobs, that comes from here. Now, the group might have helped her do this. So let's give her a group. And this is an imaginary group. I don't know what her group was really like. But she's a single mom with 3 kids, so she's in the group. Let's give her a grandma type, somebody that everyone in the group thinks of as grandma. We'll have a college dropout, working odd jobs. a woman that she relates to like a sister. We're like sisters. A person in recovery, an Iraq War veteran, a college graduate with serious health problems, and then 3 men. So far, they've all been women. A returned citizen, somebody coming out of prison, a construction worker, and a guy who's sort of like the funny guy in the group. And this is actually what our groups look like. About, if you had a group of 10, 3 of them would usually be men. So they are contributing to this conversation, and she's learning from all of them. And they talk about, what are you going to do about, let's say, your jobs? So if you look here, she needs to talk to her boss. And this is one thing that I was actually told, and some of you have heard me tell this story, and I think it's just wonderful. After figuring out in Module 1 that more than 50% of her income was going to housing, and she had a boss that would treat her well, and she liked him, and he was the kind of guy that would say, "You're like a manager." And she loved working for him and everything, but she went to him and she said, "Look, I figured out that more than 50% of my income goes for housing. So I'm really not like a manager. I have been your manager, and if you don't pay me more, I'll be gone." So she has to think about how she's going to approach each one of these things. And this is where the group can come in. And they can help her go like, well, what else do you have to take into account? Here we have negotiate, right? So you've learned about language. So you've learned about the skills of negotiation. You can use those. And she was pretty blunt when she went to her boss, of course, right? So she might need to drop a job. How are you going to keep up all the schoolwork and have 3 jobs? So the group is challenging her to think. So the idea of this tool is that she might have done this on her own and sat at home and done all of this by herself. And I think many people probably do that. But you can make this a group activity. And actually in the instructions for the activity in Module 9, it says do one of these for all 11 resources so that everybody contributes to the wisdom of building each of these resources. So you get everybody's ideas on how to do it. Now, you would not require this woman to say, share yours with us, and we're going to pick it apart or give you ideas. But if she volunteers, then she's asking for their wisdom and their insights. And they know her pretty well now. So they can say things to her like, well, when it comes down to, say, the people here, if you look down here in the bottom, the activity that we have that goes on about what the whole series of sequenced work about relationships and what relationships do you have to modify and which relationships might you have to give up. And they're going to have opinions about that. Now, they're not going to tell her, you must do this, but they're going to challenge her, right? And some of them are going to be funny about it. So, one of the guys saying, you got to drop that guy. Well, she doesn't have to put that on her list, but this is just feedback from the group. They know her, they can challenge her, they can give her ideas. When it comes to her kids, if you pan over here to the kids, she's got 3 kids, and now she's going to drop a job, still have 2 jobs, and go to school. Come on, right? So you're going to have grandma say, I look after your kids anyway, right? So you can drop them off with me, and the others will say, yeah, we'll help you out with that too. So this becomes a group activity that draws everybody together in that way. The issue of grades up here. How am I going to get past getting into college? First of all, money too, is how do I navigate the financial literacy side of this and the finance office? That's always been a huge problem. Well, she met 2 women that during the investigation that we do into the community and the resources there, she met 2 women from a college, and she told them how difficult it was to go to the financial aid office because it just seemed like Greek to her. And 2 women came up to her later and gave her their business cards and said, we'll get you in. That's building social capital. So they're reminding her of these things. Hey, you've got those 2 people that you talked to, right? Over here on time. The idea is that she's been living in the tyranny of the moment, right? Well, now you know how to deal with that. We have a theory of change on that. So that allows you to really think outside of the tyranny of the moment and begin to think of these other things that you have to take into account on time. And also, while you're doing that, take care of yourself. So this allows us to talk about self-care down here. Over here is issues of health. And by the time you're done, you have looked at most areas of life that impact this particular growth of this particular resource. You do it through the conversation, through their past learning in getting ahead, all the things that they've covered so far and the relationship that they've built. And with this, she'll go ahead and make a SMART goal with, the way we always do it. You get your big fat plan in place, and then you create your future story or your mental model of your future story. So let's pan back and take a look at what her future story looks like. Here she is. This is the tic-tac-toe model. She filled it out with the help of the whole group. Over here, she's going to go to BCCC, a community college. She's going to get straight A's, 4.0, right? And she's going to have a savings, and she says a budget's not a bad word. And she's going to have 3 happy kids and an umbrella for a rainy day. Now, when your group does this, you can have them work on it and volunteer to have the others come in and help. But by the time you get this far, they're going to be willing to help each other. And that's the wisdom of this. Now, you don't have to do this for all 11 resources because there might be 10 people and they may all choose 2 or 3 or 4 of the same ones. And that's what you would focus on. So that's how I think this can be done. It's one of the best tools I think we've got for preparing people to put together a SMART goal that really makes sense. So get in touch with me if you have more questions, phil.gettingahead@gmail.com.